was supposed to be just another walk. I had been doing it for months, maybe even longer than that without incident. Every afternoon, around noon or just after, I'd lace up my sneakers, throw on a jacket, and head out. Sometimes it was for a few miles. Other times I'd go on longer treks around town. The routine was simple, comforting even. Walking gave me the freedom to clear my head, get some exercise, and escape from the weight of daily life. There was nothing extraordinary about it. But on that day, everything changed. The morning had been chaotic. I woke up late, a rare thing for me, and instantly found myself behind on my usual schedule. I had errands to run, things that couldn't wait, and by the time I had checked everything off my list, it was already past noon. I glanced at the clock and sighed. Normally, I'd be heading out for my walk by now, my shoes on, my mind clear and ready to reset after the day's grind. But today I was running behind. Part of me considered skipping my walk altogether. The sun had started its downward slide, and I knew the streets would grow darker earlier than usual. I had gotten used to walking around noon. There was something peaceful about that time. But now the thought of heading out with the late afternoon shadows creeping in made me uneasy. After all, nothing urgent was going on. It was just another walk, right? But there was another part of me that urged me to go. That small, persistent voice inside my head insisted I needed it, that I'd feel better once I stepped outside, that I'd regret skipping it later. Maybe it was the need to feel in control after a chaotic morning, or maybe it was simply because I had grown so used to the routine. Whatever the reason, I grabbed my jacket, slipped on my sneakers, and walked out the door. I decided I'd keep it short today. I didn't want to push it too late into the evening, especially with how quickly the weather turned colder once the sun dipped below the horizon. The town always felt different when night fell. The streets seemed emptier, the shadows deeper. There was a certain loneliness to the place when the sun disappeared, like something was watching you from the corners of your vision. I started my usual route, heading down the sidewalk that ran parallel to the main road. The street was mostly empty, save for the occasional passing car or a few people heading home from work. The rhythmic sound of my footsteps echoed in my ears as I walked. The familiar crunch of my shoes against the pavement, a small comfort in the growing quiet of the afternoon. It had been about 2 hours since I left the house when I checked my phone again. It was 5:45 p.m. and I was almost home, or so I thought. I had covered a fair amount of ground, but the day had slipped away faster than I expected. I still had a couple of miles left before I would reach my block. I had just passed the corner of Main Street when I noticed something strange. Up ahead, outside a convenience store, a man was sitting on the curb next to the sidewalk. He was wearing all black, a black hoodie, black pants, black shoes, and his head was tilted down slightly, as if he was looking at something on the ground. At first, I didn't think much of it. People sat outside stores all the time, right? The town was small, and it was common for people to hang out in front of places like this. But as I drew closer, I could feel something off about him. It wasn't a sense of danger exactly, just a nagging feeling that I couldn't place. Maybe it was the way he was sitting so still, too still, almost unnaturally so. Most people would glance up as you passed, maybe offer a nod, or just ignore you altogether. But this man, this stranger, didn't look up when I approached. Still, something about his stillness made my skin crawl. As I passed, I caught his gaze, and then it hit me, the chill that ran down my spine, the sudden sense that something was terribly wrong. His stare wasn't casual. It wasn't just the kind of glance you exchange with someone in passing. No, this was deliberate. It was cold, unblinking, almost predatory. His eyes locked onto mine, and for a brief moment, I felt like a rabbit trapped in the gaze of a predator. I forced myself to keep walking, to pretend like nothing was happening, to act like it was just another ordinary day. But then, as I took a few more steps, I felt it. The shift. I couldn't explain it at first, but I knew he was following me. I glanced over my shoulder, just a quick look, and sure enough, the man had stood up. His movement was fluid, almost mechanical, like a marionette being pulled by invisible strings. He wasn't walking casually either. No, he was matching my pace, staying behind me, and I could feel it. Every step I took, he mirrored it. My breath quickened, and I tried to shake the unease that was quickly building in my chest. This wasn't normal. People didn't just follow strangers in my town, not like this. I forced myself to stay calm. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe he was just going in the same direction. But as I stole another glance, I saw it. He wasn't heading for any of the side streets. He wasn't veering off to another part of town. He was following me. Steadily, deliberately, without any sign of distraction. And that's when I knew I wasn't just imagining it. I tried to ignore the panic rising inside me. I told myself that maybe he was harmless, maybe he just needed something, but I couldn't shake the feeling. My footsteps grew quicker. I glanced down the street, looking for anyone, anything that could help. But the street was eerily empty. Just a few parked cars and an old lady walking her dog several yards behind me. Then I heard it, a shout. "Hey!" The voice cut through the silence, sharp and sudden. It froze me in my tracks, like a switch had been flipped inside me. I didn't turn around at first. I couldn't. My legs felt like lead. My body was frozen in place. I could hear him now, moving closer, his voice growing louder. "Hey, what the fuck?" he yelled, his tone filled with frustration and something else I couldn't quite place. His words were harsh, his voice jagged, and the way he shouted made it clear this wasn't just a casual greeting. He was angry. His voice was filled with a dangerous edge that made my blood run cold. Before moving on to the next story, if this is your first time, make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon for the next stories. We need your support. Please share these stories with your friends and family. Thank you. I quickened my pace. My heart raced, thumping wildly in my chest as I told myself to keep walking, to stay calm. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone, my fingers fumbling with the screen as I quickly typed a message to my dad. "There's a creepy guy following me. I don't know what to do. He's yelling at me." The text was sent. My thumb hovered over the screen, waiting for his response. I didn't know what else to do. I wasn't sure if calling the cops would help. I wasn't sure what kind of danger I was in. The streets around me were empty. No one was around. It felt like I was the only one in the world, trapped in a nightmare I couldn't escape. Almost immediately, my phone buzzed. "How far are you?" "Less than a mile." My hands were shaking, but I kept walking. My mind raced, trying to come up with a plan, trying to find a way out of this. I didn't want to make it obvious that I was frightened. I didn't want to show him any weakness, any vulnerability. But inside, the fear was growing, swelling in my chest, suffocating me. My breath was shallow, my pulse pounding in my ears. I glanced over my shoulder again. He was still there, still following me. His footsteps echoed in the distance, unnervingly close. "Keep walking. Don't worry. I'll come get you in a few minutes." The message brought a small amount of comfort. My dad was always my protector, my rock. But something deep in my gut told me that this wasn't just some random guy causing trouble. No, There was something darker, more sinister at play here. I could feel it. I kept walking, the sound of my footsteps mingling with the echo of his behind me. With every step I took, the fear grew more suffocating. My mind raced through scenarios. What if he caught me? What would he do? Why was he following me? My dad's message had given me some comfort, but the dread in my stomach only deepened. I was approaching the turn onto my street now. I had a choice. I could keep walking straight, take the next block, and head straight home. Or I could turn off now, divert my path, and make sure he didn't know exactly where I lived. My mind was clear on one thing: I wasn't about to let him know where I lived. I wasn't going to take that risk. I shot another quick text to my dad. I passed the street. Go the other way. The message sent, and I kept walking, my pace quickening. I wasn't sure what I was hoping for. Maybe that he would turn off, that he would give up, that he wasn't really following me at all. But when I heard the sound of rapid footsteps behind me again, closer this time, my heart dropped into my stomach. It was happening. He was running. He wasn't just following me anymore. He was charging at me, gaining ground with each passing second. I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. I ran. I bolted down the street, my legs moving faster than they ever had before. My breath came in short, ragged bursts as I pushed myself harder, faster. I could hear him behind me, his footsteps pounding, echoing in the silence. It was like he was right there, inches from me, and I was terrified. My mind screamed for help. I couldn't outrun him. I couldn't keep going like this forever. And then, in the distance, I saw it. Headlights. I waved my arms frantically, not caring if it seemed crazy. I just needed help. I needed to get out of there. I didn't look back. I didn't care who it was. I just needed safety. The car slowed down and stopped. I didn't wait to see who it was. I didn't need to. I threw open the door and jumped in. Get in. My dad's voice came out tight with concern. I scrambled into the car, slamming the door behind me, and my dad hit the gas. As we drove, I glanced behind us, half expecting to see the man still chasing us. But the street was empty. There was no one there, no sign of him. Just the empty street and the sound of the engine humming through the night. We drove in silence for a while, the weight of the moment sinking in. My dad was still scanning the streets, his eyes darting from one corner to the next. He said he was going to confront the man if we found him. But when we reached the area where the man had been chasing me, there was nothing, no one on the sidewalk. No sign of the dark figure who had terrorized me just minutes ago. My dad didn't say anything, but I could tell by the tense set of his jaw that he was just as shaken as I was. I didn't go walking again for weeks. And when I did, I never went after 2 p.m. I couldn't. The memory of that day haunted me. I kept replaying it in my head, the sound of his footsteps growing louder, the look on his face as he sprinted toward me, the rising panic that threatened to drown me. It felt like something darker had been waiting for me that day, something worse. And every time I walk now, every time I hear footsteps behind me on a quiet street, I can't shake the feeling that he's out there, somewhere, watching, waiting. I don't know who he was or what he wanted, but I know one thing for sure. I was lucky that day, and I don't intend to push my luck again.